Kitco News special coverage of the 31st Global Metals and Mining Conference is brought to you by Gold Terra.
Hello and welcome to Kitco News with me, Paul Harris. We're at BMO Metals and Mining, and I'm joined this afternoon by Jack Lundin, President and CEO of Bluestone Resources. Good afternoon, Jack.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Lundins don't seem to be out of the news so far this year, and Bluestone Resources is no exception. You just put out a feasibility study for a bigger, better Cerro Blanco gold development project in Guatemala. You must be very pleased with that.
Very pleased with the results. Yeah, we're super excited with the results of the feasibility study. Gives us a nice pathway to development and ultimately to production. And so we're excited and keen to move this project forward now that we have the feasibility study that can serve as a purpose to both build and finance the project off of.
Excellent. So the feasibility is for an underground 197,000 ounces a year development. And that's quite a change. Originally, you were thinking of an open pit mine at Cerro Blanco, but almost a year ago to the day, you sort of changed the scope to an underground mine. What was the sort of logic there? What was the opportunity you saw by going underground?
So actually, we changed our strategy from underground to open pit. So we were previously looking at the project as an underground when I joined in January of 2020. However, our understanding of the deposit and the enhanced understanding by bringing in a new team and really looking at what this deposit had to offer, the near surface mineralization of it, and also just the size and scale that you could move to by going from underground to open pit, plus removing some of the technical challenges associated to the underground development scenario, it really is a no-brainer, and that's proven with these economic results.
Okay, so with the feasibility, you've increased the number of recoverable ounces, but you've also managed to reduce the throughput of the plant. So must do some very good things to the economics.
Yeah, so 1 year ago when we released the results of the PEA, we knew that the climate back then is different than what it's going to be today, right? We've got supply chain disruptions, we've got inflation, we've got just material and energy cost increases across the board. So for us, we really wanted to make sure we could look at doing some significant optimizations in our execution plan. And the biggest one for us was to optimize our pit design and our mining rate. We are now employing a larger mining fleet, and that means that we're able to mine more, so a higher mining rate each year, which means we'll have a high-grade stockpile on surface so we can feed the mill with more high-grade material, thereby justifying a reduction from 5 million tons per annum to 4 million tons per annum, and that's where we've seen the most cost savings.
Okay, as you mentioned, we're in an inflationary environment. So I imagine as a project developer, it's a difficult moment of time to be in because you've got the feasibility with the numbers on it today, but as you sort of move forward and get into development in an inflationary environment, some of those numbers are probably going to change. How are you looking to manage that process going forward?
Well, of course, we always got to understand what's going on in the market, and we got to be able to look forward and try and predict what's going to happen in the future. Now, that's challenging, but for us, we really understand where the numbers are today. The feasibility study that was released on February 22nd, so just last Tuesday, show that these numbers, and they are up to date. December, January are the latest, the numbers that came in our estimate. So we believe that things will likely improve in the future because supply chain disruptions are becoming, less and less misunderstood. There's better handle on things. We did see through this process, lead times went from 42 weeks to 62 weeks, now back to 58 weeks. So we're seeing that things are getting better. And therefore, a feasibility study is always a line in the sand as you're moving a project forward. And therefore, we're confident in the numbers that we have today, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that our project stays within that capital estimate.
Now, obviously, you yourself personally and a lot of the team at Bluestone, you've got a lot of mine development experience. You all worked on sort of building the Fruta Del Norte gold mine in Ecuador. So you've got a lot of very recent experience of building mines. So I imagine that positions you very well to keep control of costs going forward, and you've got a real good eye for what you really need to keep your eye on.
Yeah, that's a great point. We have a lot of the same team that we were working together during the project or the construction phase of Fruta del Norte, Lundin Gold's flagship property in southern Ecuador. So when we made that project a success and it got into the operations, I joined Bluestone, and now we're looking at replicating that success with a lot of the same team and a refined model, an owner development scenario rather than going with a traditional EPCM approach, so that we control the costs and we control the schedule. And therefore, with the team that we have, we believe that we'll be able to, keep costs tight and have this aggressive schedule to get us into production as soon as possible.
So let's talk a little bit more about that schedule. You've got your feasibility study out. What's the schedule going forward before you're able to break ground?
Good question. So we released the feasibility study this month. Now that really serves as the platform for us to finance the project off of. So all of our activities that we're going to be working on in parallel, we're working on a financing strategy. We hope to get some form of financing within the next 6 to 8 months. We're looking at a debt facility. There's definitely an indication on a stream deal that we could put together, because we do have about 13 million ounces of silver in this new refined resource model. And then, of course, any equity overhang to finance the project as well. So we'll be looking at the market and trying to time that perfectly. So financing is a big focus, and then getting our amendment for the environmental license so that we can get that approval to continue moving the project forward into the next phase. We anticipate we can get that amendment approved before the end of this year, thereby starting early works or pre-construction activities towards the end of this year, and then full construction mobilization next year, and getting ourselves into production, commercial production in early 2025.
Thank you, Jack. Now, I mentioned at the top that the Lundin Group hasn't been out of the news this year. It's done a lot of deals. Lundin Mining buying into sort of Josemaria Resources. Today, BHP announced a $100 million investment into Filo Mining. And you're obviously at that sort of project development stage and financing. Another big company in the group, we've also mentioned Lundin Gold. They're starting to really fire on all cylinders, generating cash, building their cash position. I think, if I'm correct in saying, the company ended 2021 with about $260 million of cash on its balance sheet. It's well known, Lundin Gold's looking to expand and grow. It is a high-grade gold producer. You've got a high-grade gold project. Is there going to be a meeting of the two companies there?
Well, we have been very active recently in the Lundin Group with multiple transactions. Even on the oil and gas side, we recently sold Lundin Energy to Aker BP, and that was a deal valued at about 14 billion US. So we've been working really hard and trying to capitalize on this high commodity price environment. And when it comes to Bluestone Resources and looking at a tie-up with our company, what separates us is being a single asset developer. The board of directors, the executive team, the management team, all the way down to the frontline worker is focused on making this project a reality. So that's what separates us in the Lundin Group, having these single asset companies, because then we can really focus all the attention on making that project go from one phase to the next. So while it may make sense in the future to do some sort of a tie-up, and we're always open to looking at opportunities, we still believe that the robustness of this project and the economics that it will generate make it easy to finance, and therefore we're happy to move it forward as a single asset producer or developer.
Okay, thank you. So going forward, how do you see, or where do you see Bluestone in sort of 2 to 5 years' time?
Well, in 2 to 5 years, so in 2 years, we should be well advanced on our construction timeline and getting ready to go into the production phase. 5 years, we'll be generating some significant free cash flow. We'll be producing over 300,000 ounces of gold per year in those first 4 years on average, generating free cash flow because our all-in sustaining cost is around $630 an ounce, which means those margins are very high. So we'll be able to pay down any debt facility, and we'll be able to look at opportunities maybe in the immediate area of influence or elsewhere in Central or Latin America. So I think we've got a very good growth pipeline for Bluestone Resources, starting with developing Cerro Blanco.
And I think it's important to highlight there that in Guatemala with Cerro Blanco, that you've got a lot more land or concessions to explore there. And so there's growth potential in Guatemala itself. That's
right. So where the Cerro Blanco deposit is located, there's about a 2-kilometer northerly trend of mineralization, and there are holes that were drilled before 2006 when a company called Glamis had the property, and therefore we think that there's some significant upside potential to add satellite pits to the mineral processing complex in the future. So we'll be following up on those as soon as this year. We have a drill campaign ready to kick off once we get approval to do that.
So that's potentially what, second half of this year and going into 2023?
That's correct. Depending on our financing and how things are coming along in that field, then we'll be looking at drilling some holes to the north to add some more flavor to the story. As you get into a development, of course, you're working on schedule and maintaining schedule and cost, but to be able to add ounces or add some excitement to the story through discoveries to the north, I think that's a good potential for us that we want to capitalize on.
Okay, and so to close up, Jack, Guatemala isn't a country that many people are familiar with. So what's the reception there from the government, from the people, to the potential for this project development?
Right now, the government in Guatemala is pro-business. We do have strong engagement at the both local and national level. And so we're focused on continuing to build that relationship, build capacity in the local area. We want to be training and employing 90% at least of fully Guatemalan workforce. And then in the central government, we continue to engage with the ministers and the president to ensure that they understand our pathway to production. And we work in a partnership with the host country, because that's how we believe we can maximize the benefits for both our shareholders and the local and national stakeholders.
Okay, thank you, Jack. And finally, assuming everything goes to plan, where do you want to end 2022? Where do you want to be at the end of the year?
By the end of this year, it would be great if we could have our permit in hand. We've started pre-construction activities. We've got a significant amount of financing completed so that we're fully cashed up to advance the project in 2023. And therefore, that will give us a really good runway to start 2023 and get in a position to start construction next year.
Excellent. Well, I wish you the best of luck with those. Jack Lundin, President and CEO of Bluestone Resources, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Kitco News special coverage of the 31st Global Metals and Mining Conference is brought to you by Gold Terra,